If you're anything like me, you get obsessive. You hone in on something that you care about, you're passionate about, and it becomes everything you focus on, everything you think about all day, every day. And the reality is, hunting's not always going to be your number one priority, and it can't, and that's okay. Today, we are talking all about the cycles of hunting. Maybe a better way of talking about it is the prioritization of hunting. For those of you who don't know me, and this might be your first time listening, I'm Andrew Lukosevic. I am what you may call an adult onset hunter, an emergent hunter, a first gen hunter, whatever word or way you choose to describe it. I started hunting at 26 back in 2018, and it was right as I was getting out of the Marines. So I was deployed for basically all of 2017, got home, and went on a hunt to Montana with my best friend Peter. I did an episode with Peter all about that, actually, episode 8, called Back to the Beginning, and kind of talked about and unpacked that Montana hunt from 2018. And, you know, I'm 6 years into this journey, and a lot's changed in my personal life. And thinking about the way I've prioritized things and that cycle, as we all go through life and grow, our priorities change, things come and go. And you can't always focus on the things that you focused on when you were a teenager or in your 20s. I'm 31 right now. Next week, when this podcast comes out, I turn 32. So 6 years of hunting under my belt. And I've done a lot. I'm really grateful and lucky to have a wife that's been so supportive of me in this hobby, because when I think about my journey, my personal growth in hunting, I started in Montana, got back to New Jersey where we were living at the time, and all I wanted to do was hunt. And that's still kind of the way I am today, if I'm being honest. I think about it all the time. Every day I'm thinking about it. And I really did make that my priority. I went out west every single year at least, and I hunted the state that I was living in. Since then, I've hunted Utah twice, Arizona, Montana twice, Wyoming, Texas, New Jersey, obviously. I think that's all of them. And I have gone after a lot of different species. I've got my very first whitetail, if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify video, my very first one from New Jersey that I got in 2019 over on my one shoulder. And then I got my pronghorn from Wyoming on my other shoulder. The Euro mount behind me is from Carrie's place. This is good old lopside, he called him, and got him from with a bow in Texas. I've gotten a couple other deer. I got my elk from Arizona. And up until recently, I've been able to really prioritize and focus on hunting and hunting alone. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think that this is something that we all go through. If you're anything like me, when you start something or you go down a path, you become obsessive. You want to understand everything about it. You want to know all of the details, and you become fixated on it. You sort of wear blinders and you're just focusing on that thing. And for me, for the last 6 years, that's kind of been hunting. I've wanted to learn about all of the different weapons types, learn about how to go hunting out west, because at the end of the day, for me, the most fun thing has been hunting out west. I think if that's the one thing that if I look at all the stuff that I've done over the last 6 years that I've really got a good grasp on, is how do you build points? How do you budget to go out hunting west? How do you actually do the applications and commit to it? Because once you do that first Western hunt, the rest is easy. It's just repetition and figuring it out over and over again. Um, but the one thing I will say, I've been doing a lot of reflecting recently. The end of last year, I've done 2 episodes on reflection on this podcast. And in my day job, I've done a bunch of reflection exercises with my team, goal setting, prioritization, finding your North Star, all of that stuff. And one of the things that I do as my sign off on every single podcast, is I mention that time is our most valuable resource, and I don't take it lightly that you choose to spend it with me. And it's the truth. Time is our most valuable resource. No amount of money can get you more of it. We all, no matter how important we think we are, how busy we think we are, how important we think the things we're working on are, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. And you can only devote so much time to the things that we want to do. And this hits home for me, and I know it will for the other veterans and service members that are listening to this. This hit me because of all of the people that are not around anymore. I lost a lot of friends and family that were taken too young. And I realized very early on how fragile life is and how lucky we are to have every single day. Losing, unfortunately, a few best friends, my father, and a few other family members, that has profoundly changed the way I look at things, the way I let things bother me. I don't let the little things bother me as much as I used to, but it has made me intimately familiar with how little time we have and how fragile life is. And that's where I think it's so important to have a balance of priorities. This is an exercise that I've been doing with my team lately and talking about how you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything you want. If you're spreading yourself too thin, you're not going to succeed at any one thing. And the reality is, the reason that I'm bringing this particular topic up on this podcast, because we're not actually talking about hunting right now. We're talking about time management, balancing priorities, things like that. The reason I'm bringing it up is, like I said earlier, if you're anything like me, you get obsessive. You hone in on something that you care about, you're passionate about, and it becomes everything you focus on, everything you think about all day, every day. And the reality is, hunting's not always going to be your number one priority. And it can't. And that's okay. If hunting is always your number one priority, that means you're not showing up as a husband, a partner. You're not showing up at your day job, which means you're letting your people down and your team, your company, whatever it is that you do for work. If you're a parent and all you think about is hunting, that means you're not being as good of a parent as you could be. There are going to be cycles in your life where you have to change priorities and adjust the balance of those priorities. That means that maybe you make some sacrifices about how much hunting you'll do. Or maybe it means that you're going through a really good cycle and you can go all in and do multiple hunts in 1 year. I was listening to a recent podcast of Carrie's where he was talking about time. And he mentioned how in this stage of life, he's able to go on multiple hunts every year. And he wants to do that. And one day I'll get there. And right now, for me, that's not today. And that's okay. And I want to share this because I think that it's easy for us to get down on ourselves and think that we're letting ourselves down, that we're failing in some way. And I don't think that's the truth. The matter of fact is you are focusing on the things that are important for you right now. And as long as you don't lose sight of your priorities and the things that you want to do, and I think this is where people get stuck and hung up, is once you take a step back, it's very easy to let it go altogether. I hear stories all the time about people that grew up hunting, then they went to high school and college, they stopped doing it. Next thing you know, they're in their 30s and they're interested in doing hunting again. They haven't done it since they were 15. And that happens because we lose sight of the things that we loved to do at one point. And that's what you need to be aware of. You need to know those things that matter to you and not lose sight. And however you track that, I don't know. I haven't quite figured that out yet. This is top of mind for me because I mentioned it in a previous podcast, but my wife and I moved to Tennessee 2 months ago. And this podcast should be coming out in April. So we moved in February. And our house requires a lot of updates. A lot of updates. I'm in the middle of gutting and redoing the kitchen. We have to gut our bathrooms and a few other things. And I'm doing the work by myself. This isn't a pity party. This isn't anything like that. But I had misaligned expectations with how quickly I could get this stuff done after working on the weekends by myself. We're 2 months in and I'm still working on the kitchen. I have not shot my bow since we moved from Texas. I haven't touched a rifle. They're sitting in my safe, which is currently blocked by pieces of plywood because honestly, it's not my priority right now. My priority is getting this house set up the way my wife wants it to be so that I have time, hopefully in the summer, to start scouting and getting ready for hunting here in Tennessee. I'm not going on a Western hunt this year. I haven't drawn any tags. If I'm lucky, I'll take advantage of my Arizona over the counter tag, but that is going to be entirely dependent on what life looks like 6 months from now, or a little less than 6 months from now. I was struggling with physical health. I hadn't been working out. I definitely wasn't showing up at my job as well as I should have been the last couple of months. And it was starting to take a toll on me. I do this weekly meeting with my wife every week on Sunday, and it's called a weekly marriage meeting. We've been doing it 10 years at least, I think, uh, even before we were married. And essentially, it's broken down into a few different areas, right? You talk about appreciation for things that your partner did over the last week. Chores, to dos, and finances is the next section where you talk about the things that need to get done, bills that are coming up, expenses, plan for good times, which is making sure you always have a focus on doing something enjoyable together. You know, the old saying, never stop dating your partner. And then the last one is problems, which is the one that's relevant to this discussion. I realized over the last couple of weeks that I was getting burnt out, irritable, frustrated with everything because I was not making the progress. I woke up before my day job and was working on the kitchen and the house. I'd do my day job, and then as soon as I was done with that, I'd spend 3 or 4 more hours working on the house. I did nothing except eat, work on the house, sleep. That was it. That was my life for 2 months. And, I'm sure that there are some people that can do that and keep going. I guess I am not one of them. And that was a hard pill to swallow because you like to think and you put your pressure on yourself to be able to do all of these things. I think with social media, it's so easy to think you should be able to do everything all of the time. I talked about this a little bit in episode 14, social media and the comparison trap, and mentioned how we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to others. And every so often I find myself doing that again. But anyway, so we're doing this meeting, and this was not this past Sunday, but the previous. And in my problem section, which is usually empty, my wife and I have been doing this for a long time, and we tend to mediate problems more quickly when they come up. But this particular week, I put on there that I was overwhelmed and felt like I was starting to fall apart, and that I needed to adjust my priorities a little bit. And I lost sight of everything else. Over this time, I had gained weight. I gained about 10 pounds. And like I said, I wasn't working out, wasn't shooting my bow. And I'm not doing some of those things still. I still haven't touched my bow. I don't know the last time I looked at Onyx or Go Hunt. And I'm not going to do everything all at once. Like I said, you can do anything you want, not everything you want. And right now, my house is still my number one priority. But I need to show up more at work, and I want to take care of my physical health more because that'll help take care of my mental health. So I managed to get back into the gym and start doing workouts again. And I've been keeping track of my calories and all that stuff. And I'm not sharing this as like a boohoo thing, but I wanted to share my experience because I like to think of myself as someone who is able to do a lot of work. You know, if you ask people that know me personally, if you talk to people at work, I'm a very disciplined person. I am always doing something. I'm not good at sitting down and relaxing. I'm not generally a lazy person. And I like to think I can do it all. And I'm sure that some of you out there listening to this feel the same way, and that you beat yourself up when you can't do everything all of the time. It's okay. Just don't lose sight of your priorities. The thing that I've been thinking about is the joy of doing things. The thing I've been thinking about is the joy of doing things. I think a lot about life and death and what it means to live a good life. You know, I heard a saying once that you have to choose your regrets, the things that you want to live without. I like that frame of reference when if you're stuck between two decisions, think about you on your deathbed. Which one would you regret more not doing? And then you make sure that you do that one. And I think life is a lot about making active decisions, about living each day the way that you want to. And, there are going to be cycles where you're going to have to suck it up and do things that you don't want to do. But if you know that those things are leading you to a life that you want and you're making that sacrifice, then that's fine. But you should be able to find joy in the things that you're doing. And if you start putting too much pressure on yourself that you no longer enjoy the thing that you're doing, then what's the point? Why are you even doing it? What value is it bringing to you in your life? When you start putting pressure on yourself to get everything done all the time, you start to lose the enjoyment of it. I grew up in a blue collar family and I love doing work on houses and stuff, but lately I haven't been enjoying it. The guy who owned this house before me is not very, he said he was handy, but boy, he's done some shoddy work. I've had to repair a lot of things and I've been frustrated because everything takes 3 times as long as it's supposed to. I used to love this stuff. Putting that pressure on yourself is going to make it so that you don't enjoy it the way you used to. And that's when I think you need to really recognize it and take a step back and be like, all right, I'm overwhelmed. That means I have too many different things going on at once. I need to figure out what is my priority right now and start saying no to other things. You shouldn't say no to everything, right? So if I were to get on my soapbox again for a little bit and talk about everything that I would love to be doing right now, I would love to shoot my bow every day. I would love to be able to go on walks with my wife every day. I would like to be able to show up at my job and be present for my employees every day. I would like to be able to write in my journal every day. I'd like to be able to go to the gym or work out some way every single day like I used to. I also want to be researching hunting and thinking about ways that I can add more value to the hunting space. I have lots of ideas for things that I would like to build, but I also want to work on my house. And I can't do all of that all at once, but I can do some of it. And right now, for me, those priorities are work, working on the house, and taking care of my physical health. I think taking care of my physical health will help me with mental clarity and overall de-stressing. For me, working out and going to the gym has always been a good de-stressor. This cycle is not permanent. Once I'm done with this list of house stuff, right? And I know people in the comments are going to be like, the housework never ends. There's always honeydews. Yes, 100%. But not every honeydew is gutting your bathroom and gutting a kitchen. I've owned 3 houses now, and I've had a lot of honeydews, and I can say with absolute confidence that this is the most intense renovations I've had to do. When these are done, my priorities are going to change, and I will be able to focus on more stuff. And I'll be able to look at all of those things that I want to do and do them more. Like, I'd love to go hiking and going on some nice dates with my wife. We haven't really done that. We live in Tennessee now, and we're coming into spring. It's going to be beautiful here. I want to get some hiking done. I want to go kayaking. Which, speaking of, Carrie, if you're listening to this and you've made it this far, I need a recommendation on new kayaks because we sold ours when we left Texas because we didn't want to move them. So I'll be reaching out to you asking about recommendations. There's so many things that I want to do, but right now my priority is working on my house, and that's okay. It's going to change, just like it's going to change for you. I'm sure that this story at least resonates with some of you. And if it doesn't resonate with you right now, hopefully this is something that you can look back on when you're feeling overwhelmed with all of the priorities in your life and how you're not spending as much time focusing on or doing the hunting things as you want to be. And know that you are not failing yourself. You're not failing anyone. You're just going through a cycle. I'm going to go through another cycle when my wife and I eventually have kids. That's a big cycle change because your priorities completely shift. And again, that's okay. You don't have to do everything all the time. Just don't lose sight of the things that matter to you and where you want to go. Continuous reflection and paying attention to what your priorities are and the way your actions are in line with those priorities is imperative, in my opinion, for you to be able to really build the life that you want. And I know that this podcast has actually not been about hunting a lot lately, but this has been sort of what's been going on in my mind, thinking about hunting and how I really haven't been showing up. I missed my first podcast since I started this a year ago. I missed it, didn't record one because I was so fixated on the house that I did not set up. My office was filled with cabinets. I was unable to actually do a recording. I could have probably done an audio only, but that's not what I want to do. I want to do video. Anyway, I don't think that this story is unique to me. I think everyone goes through these cycle changes, these life cycles, these changes of priorities. And I wanted to share my current situation and story, not to get the pity from anyone, but in hopes that someone else will see this message and realize that it's okay if they're feeling unbalanced right now. Your priorities have shifted. You just have to figure out what is the most important thing for you to do right now and what things can be set to the side that you can say no to for the time being and revisit them again in the future. I know this podcast is very different than my normal podcasts. It's also quite a bit shorter than my normal podcasts. But let me know in the comments if you are watching this on YouTube, or send me a message or comment on a post on Instagram. I'm at Endurhunt, ENDURHUNT. Let me know what you thought of this episode. I think it's a different topic than what I normally talk about, but I think it's relatable. I think it's something that all of us, especially first gen hunters, emergent hunters, adult onset hunters, will go through. And I wanted to share my current experience in hopes that maybe someone else will be able to resonate and understand what I'm going through and know that if you're going through that, you are not alone. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. As I mentioned already, time is our most valuable resource, and I don't take it for granted that you chose to spend it with me. I very much appreciate every listen that I get on this podcast, and I hope that you get some form of value from this. If you did, share it with someone else that you think might benefit from listening to it. I thank you for taking that time. I'll see y'all next time.